Every year, millions of travelers race toward Tuscany. They chase the same hills, the same vineyards, the same photographs taken 1,000 times before. But just a few valleys to the east, an older Italy keeps a slower clock. Here, the morning mist does not lift on a schedule. The church bells still mark the hours the way they did 800 years ago, and the people measure time not in minutes but in seasons. This is Umbria, the green heart of Italy. For more than 2,500 years, civilizations have risen on these hilltops. The Etruscans carved cities into the rock, the Romans built roads through the valleys, and the Middle Ages left behind a landscape of stone towns that time seems to have simply forgotten. Travelers who come here looking for the next famous photograph leave disappointed, but those who slow down discover something rarer. Researchers who study travel call it the place where the rush finally stops. This journey will move through 11 extraordinary places, a town that paints its streets with flowers, a city that was destroyed and rose again, and beneath one ancient hill, a secret world carved into the dark. This is not a list of things to see. It is an invitation to travel differently. So breathe, slow down, and let Umbria set the pace. Most journeys into Umbria begin here, on a hillside that has drawn pilgrims for 8 centuries. Assisi rises in pale pink stone against the slopes of Monte Subasio. From a distance it glows, and for a moment it is easy to understand why this small town became one of the most sacred places in the Western world. This was the home of a young man who gave away his wealth to live among the poor. History remembers him as Saint Francis, and the basilica built in his name has become one of Italy's most visited treasures. Inside, the walls tell a story without words. In the 14th century, the painter Giotto covered them with frescoes that changed the course of European art, figures that seemed for the first time to truly feel. Art historians describe these frescoes as the moment painting learned to breathe. But here lies the first lesson of slow travel in Umbria. Assisi is famous, Assisi is crowded, and the travelers who linger only here never discover what waits beyond. Because Assisi is not the destination, it is the threshold. The pilgrims who came before understood something the modern visitor often forgets. The journey matters more than the arrival. And the road that leads away from this glowing town descends into a quieter valley, a place where the crowds thin, the silence deepens, and one small village does something no other town in Italy dares to attempt. For most of the year, Spello is a secret. It clings to the lower slopes of Monte Subasio, a tumble of honey-colored stone and narrow medieval lanes. Flowers spill from every balcony: geraniums, jasmine, climbing roses. The locals call it one of the most beautiful villages in all of Italy, and almost no one outside the region has heard its name. The Romans came here first. They called it Spellum, and their great gate, the Porta Consulari, still stands after 2,000 years, its ancient stones worn smooth by countless hands. Travelers who wander these streets in the quiet months find a town moving at its own gentle rhythm. An old man sweeping his doorstep, the smell of bread from a bakery that has stood in the same spot for generations. But once a year, Spello transforms. On the feast of Corpus Domini, in the heart of June, the entire town stays awake through the night, and by dawn, the streets have vanished beneath a river of flowers. They call it the infiorata, the flowering. Teams of artists, families, and neighbors work in the darkness, laying down millions of petals by hand. No glue, no paint, only flowers, sorted by color and pressed into vast and intricate carpets that stretch through the medieval alleys. Some are pure geometry, others depict saints, doves, entire biblical scenes, rendered in petals as delicate as breath. Researchers estimate that the town gathers and sorts millions of flowers across dozens of species, a secret of preparation guarded and refined for nearly a century. And then, in the most poignant moment of all, it ends. By midday, the religious procession walks the length of the town, and the floral masterpieces are crushed beneath their steps. A year of preparation, a single night of work, gone by afternoon. The people of Spello understand something profound about beauty, that its meaning lies not in how long it lasts, but in the care with which it is made. It is perhaps the purest expression of slow travel ever created, beauty for its own sake, by hand, and then released. But Spello is only the beginning of the valley. Just beyond its walls lie two towns where the slowness is not painted on the streets, but poured into a glass and laid upon the table. Down on the flat floor of the Valle Umbra sits a town that feels less like a place to visit and more like a place to step inside. Bevagna. Its central square, the Piazza Silvestri, is a near-perfect medieval ensemble. Romanesque churches, a Gothic fountain, a stone theatre whose origins reach back to Roman times. There is no grand monument here, no single famous site. And that is precisely its charm. Once a year, Bevagna travels back in time. During the Mercato delle Gaete, the townspeople recreate the Middle Ages in extraordinary detail. Craftsmen work as they did 7 centuries ago. Candle makers, paper makers, silk spinners, all practicing trades the modern world has nearly forgotten. Travelers who arrive expecting a performance find something closer to a living memory. And just above the valley, crowning a gentle hill, sits Montefalco. They call it the balcony of Umbria. From its walls, the entire region unfolds, a patchwork of vineyards and olive groves rolling toward distant mountains. But Montefalco is best known for what grows on those slopes, a dark and powerful red wine called Sagrantino, a grape that grows almost nowhere else on earth. Winemakers here speak of Sagrantino the way others speak of an old friend. It cannot be hurried. The grapes ripen slowly. The wine ages for years before it is ready to be poured. And this is the rhythm of the Umbrian table, a long lunch beneath a pergola, olive oil pressed in the hills nearby, a glass of Sagrantino, dark as the soil that made it. In Umbria, a meal is not an interruption of the journey. It is the journey itself. Yet there is one town in this valley whose entire identity is built around something even slower than wine, a harvest that returns each autumn from trees that were old when the medieval walls were new. From a distance, Trevi looks like a wave frozen in stone. Its houses spiral upward around a steep hill, ring upon ring climbing toward a church at the summit. And all around it, descending in silver-green terraces, stretch the olive groves. This is the heart of Umbrian olive oil. Some call Trevi its capital. The trees here are ancient. Many have stood for centuries, their trunks twisted and gnarled like the hands of old men. They ask for nothing but patience, and each year, in the late autumn, they give back their fruit. The harvest cannot be rushed. The olives are gathered by hand, or coaxed gently from the branches into nets spread upon the ground, and within hours they must be pressed before the fragile oil begins to fade. Travelers who visit in November find the whole landscape at work, the hum of the mills, the deep green oil, freshly pressed poured over warm bread, a taste so peppery it catches in the throat. Locals will tell you that good oil, like a good life, cannot be made quickly. And as the road climbs out of the olive groves, the valley begins to narrow. The hills grow steeper, and ahead a single bridge spans a chasm so deep that travelers have stopped to marvel at it for 700 years. Spoleto does not reveal itself all at once. It rises in layers up a forested hillside, each century built upon the last, a Roman theatre at its feet, still used today, a medieval cathedral at its heart. And above it all, a great fortress watching over the valley. But the image that stays with every traveler is the bridge. The Ponte delle Torri, the Bridge of Towers. It soars across a deep green gorge, 80 meters high and more than 200 meters long, carried on 10 slender arches of pale stone. Many believe it was built in the Middle Ages upon the foundations of an even older Roman aqueduct. To walk across it is to walk through the sky. On one side, the city. On the other, the wooded slopes of Monteluco, where pilgrims and poets have wandered for centuries. The German writer Goethe stood here and was moved. The English painter Turner came to capture its light, and travelers today still pause at its center, looking down into the green valley far below. Each summer, Spoleto fills with music. The Festival dei Due Mondi, the Festival of the Two Worlds, founded in 1958, draws artists from across the globe. For a few weeks, the ancient squares echo with opera, dance, and theater. And then the crowds depart, and Spoleto returns to its timeless calm. Here, the layers of history do not compete. They simply rest, one upon another, like sediment in stone. But to truly understand the soul of this region, the journey must climb higher still, to a hilltop town that long ago decided the modern world could wait at the gates. Some towns sit upon a hill. Todi seems to float above one. It crowns a steep ridge over the Tiber Valley, its terracotta rooftops gathered tightly within ancient walls. From below it appears almost untouchable, a town suspended between the earth and the sky. For decades, Todi has carried a quiet reputation. Researchers once named it among the most livable towns in the world, and though the people here shrug at such titles, it is easy to see how the idea took hold. At its heart lies the Piazza del Popolo, one of the most beautiful medieval squares in all of Italy. On every side rise the palaces of power, the cathedral, the seat of the people, the hall of the captains, each built in stone the color of warm honey. But Todi is not a town of monuments to be ticked off a list. It is a town to be inhabited, even briefly. In the late afternoon, the square fills with a quiet ritual. Old friends meet to talk, children chase pigeons across the stones, and the light turns golden on the cathedral steps, where people simply sit and watch and let the hours pass. Travelers who stay here describe a strange and welcome feeling, the slow draining away of urgency, the sense that there is, after all, nowhere else they need to be. Beneath the town lie the layers of its long story. Etruscan foundations, Roman cisterns, medieval tunnels woven through the rock. A town built not in a single age, but across 3,000 years of human hands. And perhaps this is why Todi feels so settled, so sure of itself. It has seen empires come and go. It is in no hurry to chase the next one. To the north, however, the landscape changes again. The hills grow grander, the towns older still, and one great city has guarded the crossroads of Umbria since before the Romans ever came. Not all of Umbria is silent stone and empty squares. At the region's heart stands Perugia, the capital, a city that has never stopped living. University students fill its streets, music drifts from its cafes, and beneath the modern energy lies a history reaching back to the Etruscans. The great Etruscan gate still stands at the edge of the old city, its massive stones set in place more than 2,000 years ago. To pass beneath it is to walk through one of the oldest doorways in Europe. But Perugia hides a secret beneath its feet. In the 16th century, a pope built an enormous fortress here to crush the city's rebellious spirit. The people resisted, and centuries later, when the fortress was partly torn down, an astonishing thing was revealed. An entire medieval neighborhood, swallowed and preserved within its foundations. Today, travelers can descend into the Rocca Paolina and walk through these underground streets. Whole houses, arched lanes, a buried town frozen in time, cool and silent beneath the living city above. And then, back on the surface, Perugia offers a gentler pleasure. Chocolate. The city is famous across Italy for it, and the scent of it seems to follow you through the streets. History below. Sweetness above. A city that refuses to choose between the two. Yet beyond Perugia, the roads grow lonelier, and one ancient town waits in the folds of the mountains, reached by a journey unlike any other in Umbria. Gubbio feels older than the rest. It rises in steep grey stone against the flank of Monte Inghino, severe and dramatic, a medieval town that seems carved directly from the mountain itself. There is a gravity here, a weight of centuries, that sets it apart from the gentle hill towns of the valley. The streets climb sharply. Tall stone houses lean over narrow lanes, and a vast medieval palace, the Palazzo dei Consoli, looms above the rooftops like a fortress of the people. But Gubbio's most extraordinary experience carries travelers up the mountain itself. A small cable car, little more than an open metal cage, lifts visitors one by one up the steep slope. The locals call it the bird cage. You stand inside, suspended, as the town drops away beneath your feet and the whole valley opens below. At the summit waits a basilica and a view that stretches for miles across the Umbrian hills. Travelers report that the slow ascent, swaying gently in the mountain air, becomes a moment of unexpected stillness, a pause between earth and sky. Gubbio guards its traditions fiercely. Each spring it holds a wild and ancient race, the Corsa dei Ceri, where teams carry towering wooden pillars through the streets in a ritual older than memory. This is Umbria at its most timeless, a place where the past is not preserved behind glass, but lived every single day. And from these grey heights, the journey now turns toward the mountains in the south, toward a town that not long ago the world believed it had lost forever. In the foothills of the Sibillini Mountains lies a town that knows the true meaning of endurance. Norcia. For centuries it was famous for two things: the black truffles hidden in its forests, prized across the world, and the art of curing meat, so refined that to this day, across Italy, a fine butcher's shop is still called a norcineria. But Norcia is also the birthplace of one of history's most influential figures, Saint Benedict, the father of Western monasticism, born here more than 1500 years ago. The man whose simple rule, to pray and to work, shaped the rhythm of European life for 1,000 years. For centuries, a great basilica stood over the spot where tradition says he was born. It was the soul of the town. And then on the 30th of October, 2016, the earth moved. A powerful earthquake struck the heart of Italy. When the dust settled, the Basilica of Saint Benedict was gone. Only its pale facade remained standing, a single wall against the sky, with rubble where the church had been. Across the region, tens of thousands of people were displaced from their homes. The town that had endured for 2,000 years stood broken. But the people of Norcia did not leave. Slowly, stone by stone, the long work of rebuilding began. Engineers and craftsmen returned, using as much of the original material as they could save, weaving in new techniques to help the walls withstand the next great shaking of the earth. It took years, but in the autumn of 2025, after nearly a decade, the Basilica of Saint Benedict opened its doors once more. The bells rang again over Norcia, and a town that the world had nearly written off proved something the truffle hunters and the monks had always known: that the slowest things are often the strongest, that what is built with patience can outlast even the breaking of the earth. Above the town, the mountains rise toward a high and hidden plain, a place where, for a few short weeks each year, the land itself performs a miracle of color. High above Norcia, beyond the last of the trees, lies a vast and silent plateau. The Piano Grande, the Great Plain. For most of the year, it is a stark and empty landscape, ringed by bare mountains, with a single tiny village clinging to a hill at its edge. Castelluccio, one of the highest settlements in the Apennines. But for a few weeks in early summer, the plain awakens. They call it la fioritura, the flowering. The fields explode into color. Wild poppies, cornflowers, buttercups, and countless other blooms spread across the plain in great sweeping waves of red and yellow and blue. For a brief moment, the silent valley becomes one of the most beautiful sights in all of Italy. And then, as quickly as it came, it fades. Like the flowers of Spello, its beauty lies in its brevity. Travelers who make the long climb to witness it speak of a profound stillness, the wind moving across the grass, the mountains standing guard. A reminder that the greatest spectacles are the ones nature unveils on its own schedule, not ours. Far to the south, the region offers a different kind of wonder, the Cascata della Marmora, one of the tallest waterfalls in Europe. But here lies a surprise. This thundering cascade is not entirely natural. The Romans carved it, more than 2,000 years ago, in the year 271 before Christ, to drain the marshes of the valley above. For over 2 millennia, the water has fallen, a monument built by human hands that time turned into a force of nature. And now the journey returns, one final time, to the hilltops, to a city that hides its greatest secret, not in the sky, but deep beneath the ground. The first sight of Orvieto stops travelers in their tracks. It sits atop a sheer cliff of volcanic stone, rising straight from the valley floor like a fortress raised by giants. The cliff is made of tufa, a soft golden rock born from ancient eruptions, and the city wears it like a crown. At its heart stands the cathedral, the Duomo. Its facade shimmers with gold and colored mosaics, catching the light until it seems almost to burn against the sky. Many call it one of the most beautiful cathedrals in all of Italy. But the true wonder of Orvieto lies hidden beneath the streets. For the soft tufa that holds up the city could also be carved, and for 2,500 years, the people who lived here dug downward into the rock. The Etruscans began it, more than 2.5 millennia ago. Generation after generation, the digging continued, until the hill beneath the city became honeycombed with more than 1,000 caves, tunnels, cellars and wells, a secret world, layered in darkness, directly below the sunlit streets. In times of siege, the people could vanish into the earth. They stored their wine in the cool darkness. They pressed their olives. They kept their secrets in the stone. And then there is the well. In the 16th century, a pope took refuge in Orvieto, fearing a long siege. He ordered a well dug deep enough to supply the entire city. An engineer named Antonio da Sangallo answered with a masterpiece. The Pozzo di San Patrizio, St. Patrick's Well. It plunges 53 meters into the rock, and around its central shaft spiral 2 separate staircases, one above the other, in a perfect double helix, 248 steps down and 248 steps up. Designed so that the mules carrying water could descend on one stair and climb the other, and never once meet. To stand at the bottom and look up is to see the genius of the Renaissance turned into stone, light falling from far above, the cool breath of the earth, an echo of footsteps that have descended for 500 years. Here, at the deepest point of the journey, Umbria reveals its final secret: that beneath every surface lies another layer, and that only those willing to go slowly, to look deeper, will ever find it. The journey ends as it began, with the question of time. Across these 11 places, a single thread has run through everything. The flowers of Spello, made through the night and gone by noon. The Sagrantino that cannot be hurried. The olive trees that ask only for patience. The Basilica of Norcia, rebuilt stone by stone across a decade of faith. The wells of Orvieto, carved across 25 centuries into the dark. None of it was made quickly. None of it was meant to be. The travelers who race through Umbria, chasing the next photograph, will find pretty towns and pleasant views, but they will miss the thing that makes this place extraordinary. Because Umbria does not ask you to see more, it asks you to see slower. To sit in a golden square as the light fades, to taste oil pressed from trees older than the walls around you, to stand in the silence of a flowering plain and feel for a moment the great unhurried turning of the world. The green heart of Italy keeps its own time, the same time it has always kept. And it is still here, waiting for anyone willing to slow down enough to find it.